And welcome everyone to a Big Ten men's basketball offseason chat. I'm Andy Katz. Pleased to be joined by Washington head coach Danny Sprinkle. And Danny, you never know what's going to happen year after year. Um, Montana State, Utah State, now Washington. You're hopping along, and you have now, not to diss the others, but it really feels like you're at a destination for the long term. Um, how does that feel to know that this is probably where you're going to be for potentially quite some time?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm tired of moving and the last two off seasons have been really hard, just not with just the amount of kids we've had to sign, but just moving and just the emotional toll it takes of leaving a team and things like that. But I mean, obviously I love it here in Seattle and hopefully here for a long time.
What have you done with all the gear that you've had to keep, sort of changing out?
Yeah. Give it to the coaches, coming the new guys coming in at Utah State or at Montana State. And obviously we're Adidas now. So I went from Under Armour to Nike to Adidas. And so everything's totally different. And but the one thing is we got tons of Husky gear now and a lot of purple and gold.
So a year ago, you pulled a rabbit out of a hat in putting together that roster. I know there was obviously some Montana State pull, who mainly great, who's going to follow you now to Seattle. Um, how is this offseason different though in putting this roster together than maybe a year ago in Logan?
Yeah, I mean it was very similar. It's different when you're in the Big Ten. I mean, there's not a lot of players that were left, that can really compete and help you win the Big Ten, when you're coming in April. And so it was hard. We had to sign 10 guys. And then you try to recruit, a lot of the guys that could have came back. And, there were some really good players that went to other places. And we wish them the best. They're good kids, but obviously they chose other places. And so we had to fill 10 spots, which is not easy. And we had, probably 65, 70 straight days of official visits and just straight recruiting. I didn't even make it back to Logan, Utah, back to my house until Memorial Day weekend. And obviously, I think it was the day after Purdue or 2 days later, I was on a flight up here. And so, that's the things that people don't take into account when you take a new job that, you're basically just turning your life upside down. And, it was a hard, 70 days, but I like the guys that we brought in. And now it's just bringing them together.
So again, you've done this where you are sort of starting from scratch. Utah State was not expected to be at the top of the Mountain West Conference. You got there, you got into the NCAA tournament, you had success, played a Big Ten foe that ended up knocking you guys out. So since you've gone through this of sort of starting over, how much does that help in this process here at Washington and into the Big Ten?
I think, it helped a little bit just because, and my staff did a really good job of, reminding me of that too. Like, coach, it's going to be okay. Like, we just got to get one recruit at a time. Because there's days and the stress level that goes with, the portal now. And it's not just here at Washington. I mean, it was every school, it seems like everybody's signing between 5 and 11 guys. And so, there's a lot of sleepless nights and long days and a lot of recruits coming on campus and leaving and new ones coming in. And it just seems like you're on a hamster wheel, like it doesn't stop. And, but once we finally solidified it, towards the end of May, early June, I mean, it's a relief, but it does take some, I mean, there's a lot of doubt that creeps into your mind. And, you start seeing who UCLA signing, who Purdue signing, or Maryland or Ohio State. And you're seeing the talent level in the Big Ten, and you got to keep up with that. So it is tough.
All right, let's talk about Great Osborne. Um, I think immediately he becomes one of the best players in the Big Ten. Obviously I watched him, saw him in person. He's a stat stuffer. What will Big Ten fans and fellow coaches and players be seeing from him now, even a year older?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's actually kind of built for the Big Ten. Like he's going to have to play some more. He's going to have to play more 4 than 5. At Utah State, we had to play him a lot at the 5, which was a hard matchup for people. But with his size, being 6'8", 250, he'll be able to play like a lot of, some successful 4s have played. I know that Trayvon Williams, I believe his name was at Purdue a couple years ago.
Yep.
He's very similar to that he can really pass. He's just kind of one of those hard guards because he can drive it. He can handle the ball a little bit, but he's also big that can get rebounds and push the break. And so, there's a lot of things that are kind of they're awkward, for people to guard or different. And so I think that's kind of to his advantage. He's actually shooting the ball a lot better and really working on his 3-point shot, which he's going to need in the Big Ten because he's not going to be able to, he's not going to be able to score as many points at the front of the rim that he did in the Mountain West. And so, but he's a worker and, he's really improved even in the last 3 months.
So he was your anchor last year, will be
Yep.
again. Who else? I mean, I know it's early, but who else are you sort of excited about what you've even seen in the early stages of putting this team together?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys. I mean, everybody's had their flashes, but Makai Mason, a transfer from Rice, a 6'5" guard who's very multidimensional. He can play the 1, 2, or 3. Tyler Harris is really talented. He's a 6'8" wing from University of Portland. DJ Davis, who played in the Big East last year at Butler, a shooter, can really spread the floor. Another kid, Luis Courtwright, has been really good from Rhode Island. He can kind of play the point or the 2. And so like it's going to be, early on, we're going to have to play, 10, 11 guys and then hopefully narrow it down to that 8 or 9 come conference. But I really like how the guys are competing and, it's hard for them to look good right now because we're doing a lot of toughness and a lot of defensive stuff in the summer. So it's not like guys are getting a chance to make a lot of shots, but when we do finally start going up and down, like that's when guys, they've been showing what they can do.
Where are you most looking forward to coaching in terms of a venue?
Man, kind of all these Big Ten places. We don't go to Indiana this year. A couple of, but like going to Michigan State. I've never, out of the Big Ten, the only place I've been is Minnesota, and I played there when I was in college at Montana State. We played there, and I thought that was an awesome gym. Where it's elevated, but a lot of these Big Ten atmospheres, they're going to be. And actually, I played at Purdue when I was at Northridge, and so it, I know it's the home courts in the Big Ten are unbelievable, and that's why I think the home winning percentage in the Big Ten is the highest of any conference. And so we have to find a way to squeak a couple on the road. But I'd probably say probably that Michigan State.
So I've been to Heckhead a number of times when that place is rocking. I love it's intimate. I know you haven't coached there yet, but what are you hoping in terms of an atmosphere that can be created there or reinforced to make it, like these other ones we just rattled off, a very tough place to go in and win?
Yeah, I think, any home court in college, it's predicated on the student section. And we have to get the dog pack. We got to get them rocking. Like you said, you mentioned you've been to Heck Ed, Alaska Airlines Arena now where, I mean, when Isaiah Thomas and these guys were rolling around and like, it almost felt like you had no chance of winning when you came here. The place, like you said, it's right on top of you. It's steep. And, the fans can really influence a game. And we're going to need that, because we're going to see that everywhere we go in the Big Ten. But I expect Heck Ed to be one of the toughest places to play in the country.
And lastly, Danny, non-conference scheduling.
Yep.
With your Montana State and Utah State, you really kind of need to do something in November and December because you're not going to get as much pop. I know the Mountain West has done a pretty good job lately, but as much pop in the conference. Kind of reverse here. You're going to get plenty of, quad 1 games in the Big Ten. So how do you balance of how you're building this non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think, moving forward, a lot of it's going to be built around like what type of team we feel we have coming back. This year we had to kind of scrap and claw and finish up the schedule. But we have some tough games. We have to go at Nevada, which is a really hard place to play. We'll play Colorado State in an MTE, and then we'll play, I believe it's Santa Clara or TCU in the second game of that. Washington State, who's going to be, Coach Riley from Eastern Washington does a tremendous job and brought some of his best players. So I know that's going to be a challenging game, and that's a rivalry game in the state here. Then Seattle U right down the road. And so, I mean, we have some tough non-conference schedule, for the team that we have coming back. But, moving forward, I still want to try and play another high major on a neutral court or, playing those really good MTEs, and I'm sure we'll get the series going with Gonzaga again at some point. And so, I mean, we're going to have to play that, but like I said, we're going to play 10 to 12 quad 1 games just in the Big Ten conference.
Well, Dan, we look forward to obviously talking to you throughout the course of the season.
Right.
Welcome to the Big Ten.
You got it. Thanks. Appreciate you, Andy.